Hey there everyone, this is Jeremy, the Music Andy with no mustache, and I'm here today to talk to you about Never Let Me Go from Placebo. Forming in 1994, coming from London, United Kingdom, this band came out with their first album back in 96. Fast forward 26 years later and we have their newest album, and this is their 8th studio album. The band is known for having an alternative rock style that's mixed with post-hardcore and noise pop back in those early days, kind of having some Sonic Youth in them a little bit of Nirvana, but a lot more polished, a lot more glamorous, a little bit softer, not as hard and rugged. Now with this newest album, we still have that alt rock, we still have that noise pop, but now we're mixing in some industrial rock and some synth pop to it. This album is coming off of their last release that was back in 2013, Loud Like Love. This album was very not well received from critics. Fans were equally as disappointed with it. Will the cold streak continue from these last two albums that were released, or does this two-piece still have some gas left in the tank after all of these years? Forever Chemical starts off this album, and we have a nice groove from the guitar. We have some tink-tonk-ass tones from the synthesizer. They're very, noisy. It's that noise pop that's going on. And then the track kind of cuts out, and the singer comes in, and it's very forefront. It's kind of the focus of the track, and I got to get something off of my chest because it's going to make sense for the rest of this album. The vocals on this album are fine, but one of the things that I really don't like about it on some of these tracks is the mixing of the vocals in these tracks. The instruments on this album, for the most part, are very interesting. They have some nice tones going on, some nice grooves, and some nice progressions and transitions to get there. But when the vocals are introduced, a lot of the times it has the instruments completely stop. They are, a lot more mundane. They're a lot more dull in their sound when the vocals are introduced. And the vocals are not that impressive to have everything cut out and be the center stage of focus. The lyrics are also pretty standard for the genre, talking about drugs, love, hate, betrayal, self-doubt. And they're presented in these pretty simplistic melodies, these vocal patterns. Everything just kind of feels a little bit bland to the genre. There are some nice moments. There's some really nice progressions that eventually come on with this album. But for the most part, it's not really there vocally. I like when the instruments are at that forefront and they're mixed all together well, because they really help complement the vocals and help push them into a better light, helping support and elevate them to the style of, if they were to be alone, they could be a lot better. But again, I think that it is best mixed in side by side with these instruments to create a just more full listening experience. Beautiful James was one of the singles that was kind of big from this. It has a nice, fuzzy, warm synth hook on it. Sounds great, but again, those vocals are a little bit too mundane. The track becomes a little dull during the bridge section when the vocals are at the forefront. And I don't want to flex on Placebo, but I do not lie 100 times a day, maybe 50 to 70. And somebody wake up James and tell him how beautiful he is. Hugz is the first track on this album that really pulled me in and kind of said, you know what, maybe this is an album that I'm going to enjoy, because the instrumentation here is very full. The mixing on the vocals are done a lot better. The progressions are solid. The tones are great. There's noisy fun for the whole family to get along on this one. And there's some very nice Sonic Youth feelings going on this one. I think it is a very solid track. Happy Birthday in the Sky and The Prodigal kind of continues this hot streak as, songs are a lot more engaging. They're a lot more better to listen to. Happy Birthday in the Sky has a little bit better of a vocal melody to it. Both of these songs have string sections in it, so if that's why I end up liking it, I'm sorry. I'm kind of a simp when it comes to strings and just strings in general in music. I think that they progress music very well. They're a very emotional instrument for me to listen to, so a little bit of a biased take on that one. But I think that for the most part, not just being biased, I think that the strings definitely work on this album because of the vocals on this. The vocals can be a lot more softer, drawn out, a little bit gothic, and I kind of think of the same way when I hear a violin. It can be soft, soothing, and it can have that kind of sinister, ominous tone to it. Again, I just think it works well with the vocals, especially when they're side by side each other. Surrounded by Spies, instrumentally is super dark. It's got that ominous feel to it. It's very progressive, super nice tones, and the vocals on this are very well mixed. This is one of the times that I think that the band really nails it for the most part. I think one of the biggest standouts on this track is just the drum performance on it. Between the two of them, I don't know who did it. I don't know if these are live drums being recorded or if it's just a drum loop. But again, I think that the drums are super prominent and super ear-catching on this track. Try Better Next Time is not a bad track in any way, shape, or form, but it is super strange to put next to the Surrounded by Spies track, which I said was very dark, very ominous. This song is a lot more light, playful, kind of uplifting. It's a little bit more linear, and it sounds kind of like an indie rock jam little session of a song. Sad White Reggae and Twin Demons are two tracks that they both have this repetitive hook on them, and it's the main focus of it instrumentally, but it didn't really grab me as much as the other ones did. I like when the instruments are all kind of just stacking and flooding and coming in one at a time through the door, and I think it makes a better listening experience as things are just slowly progressed through instead of having this one repeated little section that really isn't too grabbing in the first place. Chemtrails is the next track, and it almost has this post-rock vibe when it's kind of starting off to it. This nice little guitar section, the drums come in, but obviously the vocals come in. It kind of cuts out that post-rock feel. I think the synth on this is super nice. I think the tones on this are super nice. I think that this is just a solid track overall. Our next two tracks kind of slow down, and it makes sense. We're nearing the end of this album. Went Missing is probably the better of the two. I think the tones here are a little bit better. I think that the progression through this is a little bit better. It's a little bit more of a complete listen. The interesting flicks of reverb and delay add a little bit more to it than just a gentle, gradual build throughout the entire track, which is what the other one does. Fix Yourself has you kind of lost in reverb and delay. Again, just like the previous one, they're a lot more heavy on the bass notes. It's a little bit more prominent, telling you to kind of follow this beat. I think the mixing of the vocals, again, are done very well here, and I think it is a solid ender on this album. Honestly, I'm pleasantly surprised with this album as a whole, though. I thought that I was going to get a lot more of the last two albums. Things were a lot more reserved. They really weren't experimenting with tones very much. You're cutting off a lot of the edge that was on them, but they're going back to their old style just a little bit, giving you a little bit of a taste as a treat, of course. Honestly, if the vocals were mixed just a little bit better, I would probably like this album a lot more than I ended up doing, but I still think that this is a solid album. I'm feeling a 7.1 Friends with Weed out of 10 on this one. What did you think of this album? What albums would you like me to review in the future? Please leave a comment below and let me know. Subscribe if you like the content, and I hope that you have a wonderful day. Thank you.